G'day, legends. I just thought I'd show you guys my specific gravity setup and give you a little run through. For those of you who haven't done it before, that are kind of like, it seems like too much. I'm going to try and make it as easy as possible. And I'm going to specifically focus on tiny samples where you want to check the kind of ballpark range of its SG. We're really measuring bulk density, which I'll explain in a minute. But yeah, if you want to check really small samples, like this, little tiny, teeny gems or whatever you think you've got and you're not sure, this is a great way to do it. So we're going to go through it now. I'll show you my hydrostatic setup. So what we've got is a unique hydrostatic setup. I've done it. This is very, makeshift. Let's call it very ghetto science. But I can promise you it's extremely accurate within degrees, a small margin of error, but it's pretty accurate. So the first thing you need to think about is, what sort of scales have I got? Are they sensitive enough? For a small sample, when I drop something as small as this, get that focus. When I drop something as small as this onto these scales, am I going to get an accurate reading? What you want for the sort of tiny stuff like this, under a gram, under even half a gram, around like 0.1 or even 0.05, you're going to want 3 decimal places ideally. You're not going to get an accurate reading unless you're going to that length. And there's only a few brands that give you the sensitivity you need to do this test. You're not going to get good results with any other scales. It took me like 5 pairs or 6 pairs before I found a set that actually give me true readings. So we drop that on there. I'll run you through the setup. So I've got tripod, highly sensitive to 3 decimal places, precision scales. I've got, and this is the critical part, I have wire, which is 0.08 millimeters thin. That's the gauge. Actually, I think they measure them in different terms. So when you're looking at gauges, I can't remember off the top of my head. I'll put it up on screen for you guys in case you're trying to get something similar going. But that stainless steel wire is critical. I'll tell you why. This down the bottom here, you can see I've got my specimen jar and I've got that wire dropping into that. This is just water. It's filtered water. But it has surface tension, which is essentially a skin on the surface of the water caused by the way water molecules stick together. This is called cohesion, which is the force of water molecules being strongly attracted to other water molecules. Deep inside the water, every molecule is basically pulled equally in all directions by its neighbors. However, at the surface, we've got what's known as surface effect, which simply means the water molecules only have neighbors below and to the side, not above. This means they're pulled more strongly inward and sideways, which tightens the surface, making it resist being broken, kind of like a stretched elastic film, which can cause unpredictable buoyancy issues when running these tests if you don't take measures. And if you've got, let's just say you're using string or fishing wire, it's going to be too thick. It's not the right material. You need stainless steel wire. It'll cut through that meniscus. There'll be almost zero interaction. We're eliminating a variable there. And without that variable in our way, we're going to get a more accurate reading. So I've got my teeny tiny sample. I've got a wire that's not affected by surface tension. I've got a stainless steel basket hooked on the wire. Now, even the top of that hook of your basket needs to be below surface level. So only that thin, which you can't even see, it's so thin and small, it's 0.08 millimeter. I'll try and zoom in and show you. Let's get right in there. You should be able to see that now. You can see that wire now. That wire is so thin, it's just going to cut right through. So I've now eliminated a variable, really crucial. And I'll take you back out. And what we're looking at as well at the top here, I've actually straightened a stainless steel paper clip. I've got another paper clip there, and I've coiled a paper clip to create my basket for my specimens. Depending on the size, you might need to make a variety of baskets. We're just doing tiny samples here just to prove how well this hydrostatic SG rig works. So you don't necessarily need to go out and buy anything expensive. You can just make something yourself pretty easily. Paper clip, taped the wire, 2 bits of wire, and then another paper clip, another bit of tape to tape the wire to create this kind of trapeze frame. And what that does is ensures that wire on the side here is not touching the scales. The only thing that's touching the scales is the paper clip that's sitting across the weigh tray here. So you just got to be very careful that paper clip is perfectly straight, that it's not touching the scales here on the side, and that the wires aren't touching the scales. So the only contact point is right there in the center. You'll notice as well, I use a spirit level just to make sure those scales are perfectly level. I mean, if they're not level, we might start creating another variable, and that's going to give us false readings. Again, we're going over the top because we're doing really tiny stuff here. Normally, you'd be using lab scales and a much better rig. So there is still margin for error. These scales aren't perfect. They're just the best you can get for a hobbyist. All right. So we've got a little trapeze set up. The wire is not touching. I like to get my eyes parallel with that setup and just make sure that is the case every time. I get a control, so like a known sample of quartz, and I've got a couple bits here. This tiny little, what I was calling a gem, is actually just a little bit of quartz crystal. So what we're looking for when we do the formula, which I'll explain in a sec, is an end result of 2.65. That's the specific gravity of pure quartz. You can use known quartz like this one. This is a rougher piece, and they'll have impurities which will give us a slightly different reading. It'll still be close. It'll probably be about 2.6, and whether it's 2.60 or 2.68, maybe 2.7, there'll be a bit of a variance depending what sort of impurities or what's going on. This piece might have like a fissure in it, and it'll trap air. When you drop it in your specimen sample here, that air will give us an erroneous reading. So I'm not going to use that piece. I'm going to use this little pure piece because we're going to get a sure reading. We've measured the dry weight. I'll do it again. 0.061. Now, next step, this is crucial. I've got a little jar here. If you can't get your hands on pure ethanol, isopropyl is fine. We just need basically pure alcohol, but diluted to 50%. So 50% pure ethanol, 50% filtered water, and then this is the reason I do this, is it's a solvent. It just helps release any trapped oxygen. So say this sample has a microscopic fissure with a microscopic bubble trapped in it. Again, because it's so small, I'm going to get a bad reading. So I use a solvent, diluted, and that will release those microscopic. It should, in theory, release that air trapped in there if there is any. And you can just drop it in, swirl it around for a few seconds. 10 seconds is fine. Yeah, I had to grab this one. And I like to kind of fully rotate it as well, which can be a bit tricky, especially with odd shaped specimens like this one. There we go. So I'm just rotating it around to make sure there's no trapped air. Okay, so I've just moved the camera so you guys can hopefully see the readings we're getting. We'll just get that bit of quartz, and if we're all set up, so we've got our basket hovering in the middle, we're zeroed in, nothing's touching, we're level. We get our dry weight firstly, 0.061, to do it a few times. Oops, oh, try not to touch the scales. It's 0.061 divided by the dry weight minus the water weight. .038, 0.037, we've got a bit of variance there. It's going to be hard to get this out of the basket. So we'll have to just lift it out and tip it out. Oops, there we go. I'm going to specimen. Okay. Oh, and before we do our water weight, it's always good to, in the ethanol, swirl it around a few seconds. And now we drop it in our basket. .038. Okay, we're doing our dry weight, which is 0.061 divided by our dry weight minus water weight. So water weight was 0.038. And that total comes to 2.65, which is the known number for quartz. I'll show you the little sample there I was using. We can't trust this for exact SG, but it gives us a range to work with. Okay. Yeah, so that's how we get our bulk density. Remember that you're not precisely measuring specific gravity ever, unless you know for a fact that sample is pure. It's, pure gold or pure quartz or pure gem, sapphire or whatever you're measuring. If you know for a fact it's pure, then you've got SG and you've got the specific gravity. If there's, an impure sample, if it's something you found out in the field, there's a strong chance there's impurities or a variable that is potentially going to give you an erroneous reading or, just a rough range. And that's where we talk about bulk density, because you're measuring the specific gravity of the specimen, not of the pure mineral you're trying to ID, if that makes sense. So if there's quartz with iron or there's gold with quartz attached to it, a lot of people try and work out the weight of their gold. And there's a clever formula you can use to do that. But again, that final result, that final number, the total weight of your gold, working from specific gravity and you're deducting the specific gravity of quartz, it doesn't mean you've actually got the true weight. You've only got an estimate. If there's impurities hidden where the quartz is bonded to the gold, where they're attached, there could be other things trapped in there. Pyrite, iron, all the secondaries that you get with gold. So it's not going to be 100%. You're only getting an estimate. And the same with identifying minerals, gems, those sort of things that you're testing with this kind of hydrostatic setup. it's a rough estimate, and we've got a margin of error. Typically, I think the rule of thumb is there's the bulk density number you have, and then you've got an approximate range from the baseline that you've measured that, well, let's say it was 2.65 for the pure quartz, and then it would be between 2.65 to 2.7 or something along those lines. I think it's like 0.8 or 0.08. Anyways, you guys can double check that and correct me on that. But yeah, look, I hope that explains the setup. If you have any questions, please shoot me a message and I'll try to respond. I hope you guys enjoy.